It's your boy, Amreezy, and I'm back with another Road to Sorare Boss episode where we follow my journey in the wonderful world of Sorare. Get comfortable, make yourself a cup of tea, much like this one I have here. Enjoy the Sorare content. If that's your kind of thing, give it a like and a subscribe. It helps me out. It recommends other Sorare things to you. It helps the Sorare community as a whole because Sorare stuff's getting likes and subscribes, so that helps massively. We're going to talk Sorare. Last weekend was the weekend after an international break. And after an international break, it is always weird. I saw Sorare scores and lineups from across various leaderboards and lineups and on Reddit and on social media and everywhere. People complaining so-and-so didn't play. Why didn't he play? It's always like this after an international break. It might be a good tactic, maybe in the future, to kind of look at teams where after an international, so for Arsenal, for example, after the international break, Havertz didn't play and Gabriel Jesus played, and everyone was like, what? But I'm pretty sure that's happened before. So it might be a good tactic to possibly think of players where after every international break, so-and-so never gets played because he's always traveling really far. Maybe someone like Raul Jimenez, maybe someone like South American players, maybe some players who play like Son, maybe at Spurs. I know he plays all the time, but players like that, players that travel really far, do they usually get dropped at an international break? Is there a usual B team player that always comes in for them? Can I get them for cheap? That could be a possible thing I might think about in the future. But apart from that, I did say last week I'm not expecting too much from this international break the week after because I didn't have good lineups. The Mexican teams weren't playing last weekend, so all of my Liga MX cards were useless. And all my Premier League teams had tricky fixtures. So let's start there by looking at how I did last weekend in the wonderful, fun, exciting world of Sorare. Right then, here we go. This is how I did last weekend in what was game week 29. Before I go any further, by the way, I should just acknowledge, didn't mean to mention it earlier on at the beginning of the video. Obviously, a new haircut. Clearly, the stress of Sorare is getting to me. Hair's just falling out. Noted. Maybe even. I remember Mourinho used to do this back in the day when it went to the business end of the season. He used to shave his head. I think he did it at Chelsea. I think he did it at Spurs. Maybe one of his Italian clubs. He shaves his head, then that means he's like serious business time. So maybe I'm doing that. Maybe now that I've shed my head, I'm doing an old school Mourinho business time of the season now. We're taking it seriously because last weekend was a joke. I did say last weekend, I'm not expecting much. I didn't think I would be getting too much from how I was doing. I got 2 boxes in the end, which, was about what I was expecting. I did enter the special team. I put 1 serious team in the special lineup, and a bit of a lesson here. It did actually pay off. I got a box. It was better than nothing. These cards, I couldn't really fit in any of my lineups anyway, but I knew they were kind of possibly good enough for this special competition where I believe defenders, you had to have a defender as your 5th card. So I knew I had Semedo, who had an okay fixture at Fulham, and I knew that I was hoping Wolves were on a good run. It does seem Wolves are on a good run now. They've got good fixtures. I bought their cards a few weeks ago with this run of fixtures in mind. They've now got 2 wins in a row. So even though Semedo didn't give me the best score, my thinking was he's part of the Wolves gamble, but isn't, I didn't want to put this card in my in-season lineups, but it fitted in here. Bowen and Fernandez did really well, gave me a good score, so that was a card. This one was a bit more of a joke lineup, wasn't expecting much. Same with the third one. Then it was Premier League in-season. It does seem that I have just become a Premier League in-season manager. They are the lineups that I build first. They're the lineups that I look for the scores first. It's my favorite league in the world, the Premier League. So it makes sense that I've naturally gravitated towards Premier League in-season. I've been trading my gallery to kind of just be Premier League in-season. I think going forward, from next season, when I buy a whole new batch of cards for next season's in season, I think I'm going to put all my effort in Premier League in season and kind of play how I've been playing. So what I've been doing is looking at teams that have, say, the next 6-7 games, good games, and targeting them. So it started with Nottingham Forest. They've now got difficult fixtures, Nottingham Forest, and I'm kind of on the thinking, do I sell my Nottingham Forest cards now and trade into teams where I think they have better fixtures? The team that I wish I could target more is Brighton. I watched Brighton last week because they were playing Bournemouth. I wanted to see how my Bournemouth cards did against Brighton. There were some comments in the video last week about how Brighton are going to win. I can't remember exactly who it was, but I really appreciated your comments. The Brighton fan. You're right. Brighton did win. Brighton do look good, and Brighton have really good fixtures coming up. So I watched this game closely, kind of hoping the Bournemouth players would do well. They didn't. Even though Brighton went down to 10 men, they held on to that win, and it was really impressive. And I wish I had Mitoma. I wish I had Welbeck. I wish I had possibly a different defender like Van Heck. Maybe Lewis Dunk, who's coming back from injury soon. I have had a little look at Lewis Dunk. The problem with Brighton is Van Heck and I think it's Igor at the back have been so good. There's talk of will Lewis Dunk get back in the first team. So I think there's a good gamble out there because his price is quite cheap now on an in-season Lewis Dunk. However, I've got a few defensive options and I have Estupinan at Brighton, so I'm not going to go there. But that would be my tip if you're thinking of Brighton defenders. Maybe it's worth a gamble on Lewis Dunk. His in-season's only going for about £1 or £2 at the moment. So Cunha, amazing. What a player. He scored an amazing goal. One of his second goal was amazing. He really is an amazing player. Surely Wolves aren't going to hold on to him beyond this season. So Cunha did well, and then Palmer did okay, but the other guys let me down. But it was enough not to get relegated in this league. In this league, Larson did well with an assist. The Bournemouth players did okay. I knew it was going to be a tricky game because Brighton were playing Bournemouth, which is a tricky fixture. Wolves had Fulham away, which ended up being a good fixture for Wolves, but I didn't know how it was going to go. And Nottingham Forest lost 3-0 to Arsenal. So all of my teams had tricky fixtures. This weekend coming up, however, they've all got good fixtures. So this weekend was kind of a, let's see if I can get something and be a bit lucky. This weekend coming up is a bit more of a strategic. I've bought these cards for these kind of game weeks. So nothing from in-season. Classic, also nothing. Pedro Neto didn't play. I didn't see that coming. It seems like he might have a slight injury because Chelsea twisted the tactics a little bit. Felix came in the team and Neto was out. I thought that was a tactical tweak for the Leicester game. But with that in mind, I thought maybe Neto is no longer first team. And as you can see here, Chelsea are about to play a Conference League game where I put Neto in this team because I thought, okay, Neto wasn't playing in the league. Maybe he's not in the team now and Felix is. Felix isn't playing midweek and nor is Neto. Seems like maybe he has a slight injury, which is terrible. And also means this midweek lineup that I was kind of hoping to get something from in the Conference League from Chelsea, not going to pay out. Chelsea have rested more players than I expected. It isn't the usual Conference League lineup. It's there's a lot more rested players. Players like Casadei coming in the team. Players like Gu up front. Players like Vega starting. So, oh well. There's probably not going to be nothing to report from midweek this week. But yeah, that was a shame that Neto didn't play. It kind of made this lineup. And Gibbs White also didn't play, even though he was expected to play. So 2 DMPs. I was lucky not to get relegated. Jackson essentially saved me from relegation. So once again, we're thankful for Nicholas Jackson. And then the other Premier League and season team, not much to report there as well. Nothing to report here as well. Champion, warm-up. I've just been playing a lot of warm-up leagues. So basically, with me moving a lot of my classic cards that were not really useful, by the way, I'm kind of not really playing Champion in Classic anymore. I'm just playing Champion warm-up with 1 or 2 cards that I have lying around. Same with Challenger. There wasn't enough for a full Challenger Classic team, but there was for the Challenger warm-up league, where 2 zeros here, they were nailed on to start. Now, maybe this is my lesson. Don't go too much into the Turkish league where you don't really know much about them. But they kept a clean sheet. They won 5-0. And these boys all delivered. So if these guys had started like they were expected to start, could have got a really good score here, but nothing to report. Contender, we did have enough cards for a Contender Classic lineup this week. We didn't do anything great, but Sankris, good to see he's back with the gold. He was injured, back amongst the golds now. And Pintado has also been doing really well for Gimnasia. So I'm going to be keeping a close eye on him. He's been putting up a few really good scores lately. We look at his scores. We're having a little resurgence. Can we get back to the 100s? Can we get back to the highs, the 70s, the 82s? Hopefully this is a kind of return to form after this recent dip. So keeping a close eye on Pintado. Um, let's go back last weekend. And then I think it was just the under 23s that we had to report on, where I didn't go for my under 23 in the first division. I went in the third division under 23 lineup. And I ended up winning a box. So I think it was a good strategy, because if I had put this team in my Division 1 under 23 lineup, we wouldn't have won anything. Probably wouldn't have got relegated, but I was worried that Fafana might not play and that Madueke might not play. In the end, they did play, so it was an okay score. And because it was in a slightly lower division, I ended up winning a box. I would not have won anything in Division 1. So I think I justified me playing this in the lower division. And then we had the warm-up, and then we had some training lineups. So that's how I did last week. It wasn't a good week. I don't have Mexican teams playing anymore because the Mexican teams are now in the playoff places. So my two Mexican goalkeepers are from Santos and Necaxa. They've both had disastrous seasons and both haven't made the second stage of the season. So it's going to be really quiet for me in terms of contender classic lineups now, because yes, I have some Mexican cards, but they're outfielders. They're not goalkeepers. So it means I only have one contender classic goalkeeper. And I think I'm going to try and play him in the in-season when possible. If in-season's not possible, then I'll be playing one contender classic lineup. But like I said, all of my focus, all of my energy does seem to be on Premier League in-season. And I think I need to just keep my eye on those cards, see when they've got tricky fixtures, take them out when their form's turning, look for the next set of fixtures. So I would have liked more Brighton cards, but I've kind of gone for Wolves, Bournemouth and Nottingham Forest, and I think I'm going to stick with them for the next 5-ish weeks. Then we'll see how it does, see what I win, see if it's worth it, and then we'll readjust our strategy accordingly. So with that in mind, let's finish off this week's video by looking at my lineups for the coming weekend. Okay, these are my lineups for the coming game week 31, which is November the 29th to the 3rd. And sorry, I have two special competitions this week. There's a flying goalie, which I'm not entering because my card just didn't work out for that league. And then there's a cap 220, which is a bit of a throwback to the older Sorare players who've been playing for a few years, or even me. I've been playing for like 1 year, and when I started, cap 220 was the main thing. It was what I focused on to begin with, where you have to pick players with low L15 scores and kind of see who's going to do well this week. So, you know, it's quite nice to throw one of these lineups in here. I'm playing my challenger goalkeeper in this lineup, which means I'm not going to have a challenger classic team this week. I'm also not going to have many contender teams this week. Once again, the reasons I explained earlier, my lineups have been reduced. But what I'm hoping is that I'm shifting towards quality over quantity, because I've reduced the amount of lineups I can play. I've sold a few classic cards to get in-season Premier League cards. And I'm hoping that this strategy is going to be just focus more on one and stop spreading myself too thin. So with that in mind, these were the cards that I threw together for the 220. It all kind of depends on... Azpilicueta should play. He's got a low L15 because he doesn't play much, but after Champions League games for Atletico Madrid, he usually plays in the league if it's an easy fixture, which it is for Atletico Madrid this week. So Azpilicueta should play. Emerson Rodriguez has come back into the team recently, and they've got a really good fixture, I think bottom of the league team for him. So he should have a good game. Yeah, I do like this new feature as well, where Sorare have put the league position next to it. So I can quickly show you, they are playing Vasco da Gama. He's at home against bottom of the league team. He's not been in good form lately, but that means his L15 is low. So against bottom of the league table could be a good chance for him to bounce back. Madueke, Villa is a bit of a tricky fixture for Chelsea. So I'm not really going too hard on Chelsea in any of my life. Actually, scrap that. I have got almost a full stack in my Premier League Classic this week. But that's just because I think Villa might be tired from Champions League. Chelsea are in good form. Villa also a bit shaky form for Villa recently. So hoping that continues and Chelsea can win. Madueke, again, form is a bit hit and miss, which means he's good for this Cap 220 league. And then Santiago Jimenez has been injured for way too long. Mexican golden boy, the star of Mexico, the future of Mexico. Everyone here in Mexico is excited about Santiago Jimenez. And rightfully so. He scored on his comeback from injury midweek against Manchester City. Great goal against Man City. I don't know if he's going to start this game as well, but he might come off the bench. And if he does come off the bench, It's a good fixture for Feyenoord. They're playing Fortuna Sittard, so it's a good fixture for them. If he does start, amazing. If he comes off the bench, maybe he does what he did against City and gets a goal. So I'm going to captain him because if this team is to do well, it's going to need him to give me a good score. If he doesn't give a good score, then the team's not going to do well, regardless of who I captain. So it's all or nothing with my captaincy. I'm throwing it on him. Then we get to my juicy stuff. Premier League in season, and I'm trying something new. I'm going against of too much stacking because I've just found it's not been working for me fully. And it sounds very simple what I'm doing, but I'm just picking in my best lineup the best possible cards. In my second best team, the second best possible cards. So with that in mind, so what I've usually been doing is I've gone Matt Sells, Nottingham Forest goalkeeper in goal. Ipswich at home is an amazing fixture. And what I've been doing in the past is thinking, well, if I'm going to have the Nottingham Forest goalkeeper, I should have a Nottingham Forest defender so that if they keep a clean sheet, I've got double check, I'm banking on that stack. I'm not doing that anymore. I'm not stacking anymore. I've gone against stacking. Instead, I'm going to go Estupinan has a better fixture than Milenkovic, who's my best Nottingham Forest defender. Even though Milenkovic has a good fixture and would pair nicely with my goalkeeper and looks nice, Estupinan has Southampton at home. And if I had the Brighton goalkeeper, I would have put the Brighton goalkeeper ahead of Sells. So I'm taking it on a kind of position by position basis. There's no better goalkeeper for me this week than my Forest goalkeeper. There's no better defender for me this week, I think, than Estupinan. Cole Palmer is magic, even though he's got a bit of a tricky fixture. I can't not include Cole Palmer. The only thing I'm going to do with Cole Palmer this week is not captain him because Villa at home doesn't feel as good of a fixture as Cunha, who has Bournemouth at home, and the form that Cunha is in at the moment, it feels silly not to captain Cunha. So Cunha is going to be there. And then this is the position where I've spent the most time debating. Should Callum Hudson-Odoi be here, or should I go for the other Wolves striker who I've put in my third lineup, Larson? But if we're going on the kind of thinking of who's got the best fixture, Hudson-Odoi at home to Ipswich should be better than Evan Nielsen away at full Wolves. Should be better than any of the Bournemouth fixtures who've got away games. Should be better than Chris Wood, who's a bit of a fixture doubt, or Larson, who doesn't score as well as Cunha. So on his day, Hudson-Odoi's ceiling is higher than Larson's ceiling. Larson and Wood are very similar players. They both will give you a good score, maybe 60, 70-ish if they score. If they don't score, they don't usually get involved and don't score well, so they can give you a score like 30, 40. Whereas Hudson-Odoi, even when he doesn't give you a goal involvement, does usually score well. He has had a bit of a dip in form lately, but Forest have had tricky fixtures. Ipswich at home should be a chance for Forest to kind of return back to good fixtures. If Forest don't do well against Ipswich at home, I might look to sell my Forest cards because after this, they've got tricky fixtures. And if they don't do well against Ipswich at home, it will tell me that maybe Forest's form is going to kind of dip a little bit. Maybe the kind of great start to the season isn't going to last and they are going to have a bit of a dip in form now. Can I capitalize on that and sell my Forest cards while maybe they have a bit of good value from the good form they've had previously, and maybe trade them for teams like Brighton, who I'm targeting now, and kind of go, okay, fireworks just for the suggestion of Brighton having good form. But I really like the look of Mitoma. I think he's had a slow start to the season, but from what I saw against Bournemouth, I might want Mitoma. So could I trade Hudson-Odoi and Chris Wood from Mitoma? Could I do something like that? That's what I'll think about, and I'll tell you next week if I do that. But it all depends on how Forest do against Ipswich. If they do really well, then I might say, well, these tricky fixtures they've got coming up, I could ride these out and then stick with them for when they've got good fixtures again. So that's what I think is my best 5 cards. So they're going in my highest league of in season. Second best team, I'm going for a lot of Bournemouth cards because I think even though I've got Wolves players, I think Wolves away is still a good fixture for Bournemouth. And Bournemouth need to bounce back. They need to get their season going again. And I think Wolves at home, Wolves have won 2 in a row, but Bournemouth, it's still a good fixture. So I'm going to be going for 4 Bournemouth cards. And then Milenkovic, who's got a good fixture. So I don't usually play a defender as my 5th card. I just think it's harder to find clean sheets. But Ipswich at home, for Nottingham Forest could be a clean sheet. So Milenkovic is in there. And then my third Premier, it's the first time I've ever played 3 Premier League in-season lineups. And this is the one I'm least confident about, but it's in Division 5. So if it doesn't work out, I'm not going to get relegated. I don't really have much to lose. And there is the potential that it does pay off. So I'm going to be going for Bournemouth, one more Bournemouth defender, Nottingham Forest midfielder, West Ham goalkeeper. They're playing Arsenal at home. Tricky fixture, but 2 things I'm thinking here. One, Arsenal coming back from a Champions League midweek game where they did really well, but a lot of their first team players were playing in that game. So maybe Arsenal are a little bit tired. And then 2, West Ham have won 2 games in a row. So maybe West Ham have got a bit of form, or maybe it's one of those games where they lose but narrowly and Fabianski makes lots of saves. Also, Fabianski against his old team feels nice. And then up front is the 2 strikers who are a bit of a gamble, especially Chris Wood with his recent injury doubt. Although Chris Wood came off the bench at the weekend, so he's not that injured that he can't... He should be at least... Worst case, he should be on the bench. But he could get a start against Ipswich at home. Let's see what happens. With the uncertainty, I'm going to captain Larson, who has Bournemouth at home. Then I've got my Premier League. I've got one classic Premier League team I'm doing this week, and it's going to be Chelsea featuring Dominic Solanke and Nick Pope. Cucurella, Enzo Fernandez, Jackson should all play. None of them are starting. None of them, I think, are even on the bench for the Conference League game that's happening on Thursday, today, as I record. So they should all play at the weekend. Solanke should play for Spurs, who are Fulham at home, which is a good fixture for Spurs. And then Nick Pope. I do not like Newcastle's form recently. I was hoping Nick Pope was going to be a really good classic Premier League goalkeeper card for me this year, but so far it's not really working out. I don't know why I've got the captaincy on him. That is a mistake that I've just spotted live on stream. So let's put the captaincy on Big Nico Jackson. My boy. I've got to go with my boy. I've got to go with my heart. So let's put the captaincy on Nicholas Jackson. And it's only one Premier League classic lineup because I've got a lot of goalkeepers who have been dropped or injured. I've got Sam Johnstone. I've got Aaron Ramsdale. And I've got Jorgensen. So I've got 3 backup or injured Premier League goalkeepers, which means I can't really put out many other classic teams. There's a warm-up lineup where I'm going to hope Bowen continues his great form against Arsenal. Backing the Brighton boys here. At least I can play the Brighton. This is why I love this warm-up league. It just gives me the feel that I don't have the Brighton cards that I want, but at least I can put some of them together in the warm-up league. So if I can do that, I'm close. I'm captaining Mitoma because I've got a good feeling about Mitoma. Then we've got a champion lineup where I'm going to put full stack of Spurs players because they've got Fulham. Let's not think too much about that. Challenger, as I said earlier, can't have a Challenger Classic team this week, so we're going to play this warm-up league. Contender, we can't have a contender in season because my only forwards are from Liga MX. So they're not playing this week. I've got Atlas forwards, and Atlas are playing. They've made it to the next stage of the Mexican season, but they're not in the playoff stage, which is this weekend. So nothing for me here. So I put them in the classic teams as well. One contender classic lineup. There's that Pintado boy again. Let's hope he has another good week. Sancris, can he get another goal? Gonzalo Piovi, my favorite defender in Mexico. He's had a bit of a worrying bit of form lately, Piovi. I think he's had 2 scores of like 20 and 15. I think he made a big error in one of the games and maybe a booking in the other game. So hopefully he can get back to winning ways. And then there's no other classic teams to contender. It's a very quiet week for me this week. A couple of warm-up leagues. Under 23, again, only the warm-up leagues in the under 23s, where Yanni Stuckers for Genk has got a nice fixture, even though he's away. Genk are top of the league, and they've got a good game against Sintrudiense. Apologies for my pronunciation, which I've probably butchered there, but he's got a good game for Genk, so maybe he can go well with these cards in the warm-up league, and that is my lineup. So like I said, it's very quiet. My gallery is being thinned, but Premier League in seasons where my heart is. I've got 3 lineups this week. Let's see what happens. I'll let you know in next week's video how it goes. Good luck, guys, with your game weeks coming up. All the best for that. Thanks for watching the video. Thanks for supporting the channel. I'll see you next week. As always, peace.